All right, let's get our hands dirty and talk about broccoli. Today, we're going to break down exactly how you can grow this nutritional powerhouse right in your own garden. And trust me, it's easier than you might think to get this crown jewel onto your dinner plate. But first, here's a wild thought for you. What if I told you that every time you eat a piece of broccoli, you're basically eating a little bouquet of flowers? Sounds a bit strange, right? But it's absolutely true, and it's the real key to understanding how to grow it. So, yeah, that's the secret right there. That big green head you see in the grocery store, it's just a super tightly packed cluster of flower buds that haven't opened yet. And get this amazing vegetable was first cultivated by the Romans more than 2,600 years ago. They took wild cabbage and selectively bred it over time to create this huge, delicious flower head. Pretty cool, huh? And it's not just a fascinating plant, it is a nutritional giant. I mean, it's absolutely loaded with vitamin C and beta-carotenes. Plus, it's a great source of minerals we all need, like potassium, iron, and calcium. Oh, and it's super high in fiber. It really does earn that crown jewel nickname. Okay, before we really dig into the how-to, just a quick but super important disclaimer. All this information is for educational purposes. If you need any specific health advice, please make sure you talk to a qualified professional. All right, let's jump into the first major step. The planning phase. Honestly, getting the timing and the location just right is probably the most critical part of this whole thing. It really sets you up for an amazing harvest later on. First up, you've got to decide what kind of broccoli you're going for, because you've got two main options. There's heading broccoli, like the Calabrese variety. That's the classic big head you're used to seeing. Or you could try a sprouting type, like Burgundy. This one gives you tons of smaller side shoots over a much longer time. It's a fantastic choice if you want to be harvesting broccoli for weeks and weeks. Now, this next part is maybe the most important thing to remember. Broccoli is a cool season crop. It is happiest in that perfect little temperature window between about 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If it gets too hot, say above 80 degrees, the plant gets stressed out and does something called bolting. That's where it just rushes to flower, which can make the head taste bitter and kind of ruins the whole thing. Because it's so sensitive to temperature, your timing has to be spot on. You basically have two main windows to plant. For a spring crop, you're starting your seeds inside way before the last frost. But you know what? For a lot of people, the fall crop is even better. You start your seeds in the middle of summer, then you transplant them out for a beautiful autumn harvest. And you often have way fewer pests to deal with. So what's the perfect home for your broccoli plants? Well, they're pretty hungry, so they need full sun. We're talking at least 6 to 8 hours of direct light every day. The soil needs to be fertile and drain well. The easiest way to get that is to work in a couple inches of rich compost before you even think about planting. And finally, they like their soil just a little bit acidic, so aim for a pH right around 6.0 to 7.0. Okay, so we've got our plan. Now for the really fun part, the growing journey itself. This is where we take those little baby plants and help them grow into healthy, productive broccoli machines. Once your little seedlings are ready to go, the process is actually pretty simple. Make sure your soil is ready with that compost we just talked about. Spacing is really important. Give each plant about 18 to 24 inches of room so air can move around them. Plant them just a little deeper than they were in their starter pots, and then give them a really good, deep drink of water right away to help them get settled in. All right, now let's talk about the 3 key things you've got to do to keep your broccoli happy. First, water. You have to be consistent. Give them about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water every week. And try to water the soil, not the broccoli heads themselves. Second, food. Since they're big eaters, give them a little boost with some fertilizer about 3 weeks after you plant them. And third, mulch. A nice layer of straw will keep the soil cool, hold in moisture, and keep the weeds from taking over. Of course, no garden is a perfect paradise, right? You're not the only one who thinks your broccoli is delicious. But don't worry, dealing with pests is totally a manageable part of the process. And here's a little piece of advice that I love, especially if you're trying a fall crop. That first frost of the season, it's basically your best friend when it comes to pests. It pretty much takes care of a lot of them for you. So who are the usual troublemakers? Well, you've got your cabbage worms, those little green caterpillars that chew holes in the leaves. You can literally just pick them off by hand or use a natural pesticide called Bt. Then there are aphids. A strong spray of water from the hose usually knocks them right off. And for something more serious like clubroot, managing your soil pH is really your best defense. But honestly, you want to know the best pro tip for dealing with pests? It's all about prevention. Just get a lightweight fabric called a floating row cover and drape it over your plants right after you put them in the ground. It creates a physical barrier that stops things like moths from ever laying their cabbage worm eggs on your plants in the first place. It is a game changer. Okay, after all that planning, planting, and protecting, we finally get to the best part, the moment we've all been waiting for. It is time to harvest your reward. So how do you know it's go time? You're looking for a broccoli head that's firm and tight, with all those tiny little buds packed together. The color should be a nice, deep green. But here is the critical warning sign. If you see any yellow petals starting to show, that means the flowers are opening. You need to harvest it that day, because the quality goes downhill really fast after that. How you harvest is also super important. You want to grab a sharp knife and cut the main stalk about 5 or 6 inches below the head. And here's the trick. Make that cut on a slant. It's a simple thing, but it stops water from sitting on top of the cut stem, which prevents rot and keeps the plant healthy for what comes next. And that brings up a really good question. You've just cut this big, beautiful head of broccoli. So, are you done? Is that it for the plant? No way. Not even close. In fact, the party is just getting started. You need to get ready for the amazing side shoot bonus harvest, which is honestly one of the best parts about growing your own broccoli. This is the plant's awesome little secret. Once you take off that main head, the plant goes, okay, time for plan B, and starts pushing out all these smaller, tender side shoots. They're just as delicious, and they'll keep coming for weeks, sometimes even longer, dramatically extending your harvest season. So there you have it. From a tiny seed to a gorgeous bouquet of flowers you can actually eat, and then you get a bonus harvest. It just goes to show you that with a little bit of planning, you can grow something truly amazing. Which really just leaves one final thought for you. Now that you're a pro at growing flowers, what are you going to cultivate next?